Hello, are you looking for a fun project to use up some of your fabric scraps? Well, this turkey pattern will do just that. He works up easily in a weekend, and he'd be great for a beginner all the way through experienced crafter. So I think he would look adorable on a dining room table or a coffee table, and he would make a great hostess gift if you're going to somebody else's house for Thanksgiving. So my name is Dawn, and I'm the Ginger Cat Stitcher, and let's get started. So to make our fabric quilted turkey, we only need a couple things. First of all, you're going to need to choose a fabric for the body, and then you'll need to choose a fabric for the binding and the back, and then you'll need a pile of scraps. And the more varied and different colors you have, the more varied and colorful his tail will be. And then the other thing that we'll need is this foam. It's fusible on both sides, and you can get it, just got this at Joann's. You can get it with where the fusible interfacings and fusible fleece and stuff like that are sold, and I believe it's like $9.99 a yard, but you can use one of their 50% off coupons. So you'll need just a small piece of the fusible foam, and then you'll need the turkey body pattern, and I've provided this as a free download. So if you go down to my description below the video, there'll be a link to download the shape. And then you're going to need some sort of filling to give the turkey some weight. I'm using ground crushed walnut shells, but you could use rice, kitty litter, anything that you like to use to give it weight. You'll also need some stuffing, and then a dinner plate to trace the shape for his tail. And you can make his tail any size you want. My dinner plate is about 10 inches across, so that's how big his tail is. And other than that, you'll need hot glue, an iron, a sewing machine, that kind of thing. And the other thing that you're going to need is a strip of red fabric, yarn, wool, anything like that to make his wattle. And this is a strip of red wool. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started making his tail. The thing you're going to start with is a scrap of fabric that you have cut multiple sides to. So this is a hexagon, and I'm going to go ahead and start with that. And it is about a 2-inch wide hexagon. So the straight part here is 2 inches, and it's 3 inches from tip to tip. So this is a good size to begin his tail. So I'm going to grab my pile of scraps, and I'm going to head over to the sewing machine. So I'm going to start with my center hexagon, and I'm going to choose a scrap of fabric that I think will look good on that. So right there. And I'm just going to go ahead and let's trim this down a bit. I'm going to line up the straight edge of my scrap with the straight edge of the hexagon. Line that up. And then just sew those two together. No need for a front and back stitch. These will all be overlapping, and they'll stay together. So I trim my threads, and then I open that up, and then I'm going to take it over to my iron. Okay, so here's the first two pieces that I've sewed together, and I'm going to go ahead and press the seam over. Just like that. And then I'm going to take it over here to my cutting mat. And I find that it's really important for me to use a straight edge. I tried using scissors before, and it comes out so crooked. So I use my straight edge, and I just trim that off. trim this like that. So now we're going to go ahead and place on fabric number 2, and we're going to work in a clockwise circle. So my next fabric will go across here. So let me go sew that on. And here we are with the second piece. We're going to fold it open. And a couple things to note here is always make sure that your scrap extends beyond the edge of the piece you're stitching it to, so that there's plenty of room there to trim it off. And your scraps that you're sewing on can be different widths. So you'll notice that this one here is a bit narrower than this one here. And that just gives it some extra interest. And so when you choose your scraps, you can choose fall colors, you can use bright colors, whatever you like to use. You can make them kind of all from the same fabric line, or you can mix and match, whatever you like. And then I'm just going to trim off this piece. Oops. And there we have it. So my next one will go here. So I'm just rotating around clockwise. So my next one will go right there. And there we go. So I'm going to keep doing this and adding them around and around until I am 10 inches in diameter. So I've traced my dinner plate onto this template here that measures 10 inches so that I can put my fabric on there every once in a while and check and see how much more I need to go. So I'm just going to add pieces around and around and around until I get 10 inches. Okay, I think we have enough strips sewn on. Let's take the template that I traced for my 10-inch tail. I used my dinner plate to trace it, and absolutely that's enough. We don't need to add any more strips. Okay, so we have that, and then I took the same template and I traced and cut out a circle from my backing fabric. And then I took that same template and cut out a circle from my fusible foam. So now we're going to make a sandwich with our backing fabric right side down, and then our fusible foam on top of that, and then our crazy quilt patchwork tail on top of that. All right, let me get my pressing mat here. You don't want to press on your cutting mat. Got it all mixed up now, or it'll warp it. Okay, so now we're going to fuse the top and the bottom to that foam. Just going to take my iron. And there we have it. I have both sides pressed on. At this point, if you want to quilt it, you can go ahead and either hand or machine quilt it. When I did this guy, I did quilting on the diagonal. Kind of gave it a diamond pattern. And I think that looks really cute. On this one, I'm going to not quilt it. I'm going to just leave it as is. You could also add some embroidery on there. I think that would look really cute. But now we're going to trim the top block even with the foam. So that's all trimmed to fit the foam. That looks really cute like that. You know, that would make a really cute Thanksgiving hot pad. Just another idea for a hostess gift. Now what you want to do is figure out which side of the tail, or which part of this round piece do you want to be the bottom of the tail. So I just kind of turn it around. I think I liked it like this. And you're going to use your straight edge and your cutter one more time. And we're going to cut off just a bit. Make sure it's straight. There, so we just are taking maybe a 1/4 inch off. So that there is a flat part to the tail. Didn't quite get it. Like that, so that it can stand on this flat part. So we cut off just a tiny little bit. Now the final step for the tail is to add binding. Now you absolutely can use purchased binding. You're going to want single fold binding, or you can make your own out of the background fabric, the backing fabric, which is what I'm going to do. You're going to need 34 inches of binding, which is enough to go around and leave a little bit extra. And so I have this Binding Buddy. It measures 2.5 inches and it has this 45-degree angle cut on the side. And I am going to use that to make the binding, and I think it works nice and easy. Once you get your 34 inches of binding cut, go ahead and fold it in half and give that a nice press. Now we're ready to sew the binding on. So we're going to take the end that's at the diagonal and has kind of like the little pocket, and we're going to start with that on the straight edge that we cut at the bottom of the tail. I'm going to clip that, and I'm going to start sewing, giving myself some room to be able to open this up. And I'm just going to lay the binding down. I'm not going to pull or anything because it's on the bias, so it will curve nicely around the edges, just like that. And I'm going to sew all the way around until I get to here, and I will stop about right here. And that way I'll be able to open this up, tuck the end in there, and then finish sewing it closed. And we're going to start with the binding on the back of the tail. Okay, so I've got all the way sewn all the way around, and now we're just going to turn our binding just like so. And now I'm going to stitch it down on the front. I'm going to make sure that I don't pull over as I sew. It'll cup the edge, so I'm just going to let it lay nice and flat and sew around the top. And I'm going to edge stitch, so I'm going to stitch it as close to the edge of the binding as I can. All right, so now I have my binding sewn on, and you'll see right here I didn't catch that into the binding, so just make sure that you are paying attention and go slow so that you catch the edge in. Fortunately, this right here is where the body of the turkey is going to go, so that will be covered up. So now we're done with the tail, and it's time to do the body. So here's the fabric that I've chosen for the body, and you're going to need your template, and you're going to trace your template onto a double layer of fabric. So you're going to put him on here like this, trace all the way around him, and we're going to sew on the trace line. So this is your sewing line, and do not cut him out until after you've sewn them together. And then you're going to leave a little opening here at the bottom so we can turn him and stuff him. And once you've sewn all the way around, you're going to go ahead and cut him out. As you're sewing, remember to use a small stitch length, I guess I should say a short stitch length, and go slow. And the shorter stitch length will give you better control going around the corners and the points. Alrighty, and another tip is where I leave the opening to stuff and turn. I like to iron those little flaps over, and that just gives me a little bit of a neater edge, a little more control when it comes time to sew the bottom closed. So we're just going to push him through. And use a turning stick here to help. And so here's a little tip. If it gets really stuck there and it's hard to get the tip out, go ahead and use some tweezers. You don't want anything too pointed or it'll put a hole in the fabric. And just push his beak back in. And then as you can feel inside, make sure that your tweezers grab some of that fabric and then just pull, and that'll pull that beak right on out of there. There we go. And then come up from the bottom. There, now he has a nice pointed beak. Now it's time to stuff him. I'm going to stuff his head nice and firm through his neck down to about right here. So his head and neck down to about right there, very firm with polyfill. And then the rest of him I'm going to fill very firm with my crushed walnuts. And then the very bottom part here, about the bottom 1 inch, I'm going to go back to polyfill and pack that in there nice and tightly. And that's to make sure that the crushed walnuts or rice or whatever you are using stays put and doesn't come leaking out. So I'm going to go ahead and stuff them, and I'll be right back. All right, now my body is sewed. It's all stuffed, nice and firm. And you can either leave him like that or put eyes on him using buttons or beads. I'm using these glass beads here. I think it says they're a size 20. I can't quite read and tell. Let me get it in focus. If that's a 20 or a 2/0. So I just got these over at Joann's or Michael's, I don't remember. But I'm going to go ahead and sew 2 eyes on him. And I thought I would show you real quick how I do the eyes. So I'm going to choose where I want his eye. I'm thinking about right there. So I'm going to use a double thread, and I'm going to do a loop start like that. And then I'm going to take my bead and put it down, and then I'm going to put my thread right, let me get it in focus here, right where my start is. And then I'm going to turn him facing me, and I'm going to put the needle all the way through, and I'm going to check it from different angles. I'm going to check it from the top all over to make sure that I'm getting it right, exact opposite of where this one is. And it never comes out exact. But there we have one eye. And I'll take the other bead and go right back there, and then come up in the center of this bead. There we go. And there we go. So I'm going to go back and forth a couple times and stitch these down nice and flat. Now he has 2 eyes. He's looking pretty cute. Only 2 more steps to go. So right now we're going to do his wattle, and that's going to go on his head, his beak like that. And let's see, how wide is this? It's about 1/2 inch wide, torn strip of wool from a thrifted skirt that's been washed and dried. And I'm just going to round these 2 edges here and just play with the length of what you like. Kind of like that. So let's see, this is about 5.5 inches long. Now is the time for your hot glue. I'm going to fold it in half with the edges lined up and put just a tiny little dab of glue right there and pinch it like so. And then I'm going to decide where I want it. I think I'm going to put it right there. So just a tiny, tiny little dab of hot glue. Just like that. And then I'm going to put a tiny little dab on either side of the beak, just to hold the wattle down. I think that's what it is. I think it's a wattle. I don't think it's a wobble. I don't know. Maybe it's a wobble. I think it's a wattle with a T. W-A-T, not D. I don't know. So there he is. Last step is to attach his tail. So I'm going to run a bead of hot glue right down the seam in the back, and then I'm going to attach the tail on just like that. Oh my gosh, he's looking so cute. Okay, so starting right here where it kind of curves out, that's where I'm gonna start my bead of glue. We're gonna go all the way down. And line them up. Press it on there and hold it for just a bit. And he's finished. Give him a little squish and he stands up. So there you go. So a crazy quilted scrap turkey, perfect for your Thanksgiving decor. Also a wonderful hostess gift or a neighbor gift. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.